Hello everyone, welcome. In this Joseki video, let's talk about a very basic but very important Joseki from the small knights approach to the 3-4 point. As we can already see, it is this kick at number 6. So this is a very beginner friendly video because it's such a basic yet very important Joseki. Just a brief note. Starting from now, we're going to see the 3-4 point facing this way, facing downward. As I explained, the direction, it is rare to see a 3-4 point pointing to the other direction, in the opponent's direction, because any approach this way is more valuable than an approach this way. Right? So we're going to have white facing its own corner and black approaching. But of course, in real games, you need to take everything into account. But here, we're mostly just focused on the upper left corner. So when your opponent plays the small knight's approach, or any approach, there are 3 directions for white to go in this situation. One is the upper side, the second is the left side, and the third is to guard the corner. Curiously, what was going on before the age of AI was that this kick was almost never played because it was considered too small or too low, right? So this was actually not an actual recognized Joseki, which is quite amazing if you think about it. It is like the direct 3-3 invasion to the star points. It is just pretty groundbreaking, right? So people must have had a hunch that this could work, but just human players didn't like it before the age of AI. Because we have a very similar Joseki, right? The kick Joseki, this had always existed, even before AI, right? So from the start point, you play the kick, and then you guard the corner with number 13 here, or here, right? But now we say that playing on the 4th line is better than playing here on the 3rd line. So this kick always existed, but this one didn't. If you look at old Joseki books, it's not taught. When I started out more than 20 years ago, 25 years ago now, this Joseki was not taught. But I think now we can disregard the reason why it was not taught, because it is a little low, and we'll get into it in the next video. But we'll keep it relatively simple in this video. We'll just remember the sequence on the upper left. And should we do a comparison of these two? Actually, no, because these 2 corners are not very comparable because they're so different. Right? If we were to compare them, we have to know the difference, because the upper left, after this sequence, black cannot come in and make a living shape. There's just not enough space. So the corner territory is already white's. So white has already used a base and is 100% alive, right? Unless it makes a mistake on the outside. You make a mistake with this push and cut. It's something like this. Of course, something has gone wrong in the sequence for white already, but 95% of the time, even for beginners, you're going to be alive. And that is why you should definitely try out number 6 and 8 as a beginner. It's a very nice way to grab 10 points in the corner and build a solid base. Whereas the upper right, as we already covered here on this channel, in this playlist, do you scroll all the way up, we already covered this. And of course, one big concern is that whites can always have an invasion at the 3-3 points. So the corner is actually not secure, right? And as we covered, it is actually better for black to give up the corner territory. White invades here. It is okay for black to give up the corner territory and play on the outside, right? So it's totally different, totally different, because the start point leaves just enough space for your opponent to make a living shape, whereas the 3-4 point here doesn't leave enough space. So that's a huge difference. Very big difference. So now let's focus on this very simple sequence, and then we'll call it a day. So the kick is really the only move from the 3-4 point against this small knight's approach to guard the corner. Any other move is simply too slow, too small, right? This is too small. This is a little too low, right? It's something like this. Again, playing on the second line, just not a great idea. Even if it's something like this, white still owes a move, right? Having this exchange is not good for white, because even without 6 and 7, white is already alive, right? Playing here only strengthens black on the outside. So there's really no good move other than this kick to guard the corner. So that is why this kick, pretty intuitive actually, but for a long time human players have just disregarded this move, I think rather unfairly. And as black, this kick is 95% of the time forcing, right? So it is very forcing. Unless there's something really urgent elsewhere on the board, you almost always play at number 7, this extension on the 4th line. This is a very nice shape for black, actually. Right? Part of the reason why this was not favored, because number 4 and 6 occupies a rather low position, so it has to jump out. It has to jump out. It cannot play elsewhere. If you play elsewhere, then black will be able to, in this day and age, right? In the past, we would say something like this, right? This is already pretty good for black. The wall is very solid, and white is pushed to the second line. But in this day and age, we like this Hane and number 11, right? So what happens now is that white will have to break out this way, right? Something like this. And if white connects here, that's even worse, right? White still owes a move on the inside to have to make a living shape. So that is why it is very important for white to jump out. So number 8, this is the optimal move. So please remember this. When I see amateur players play online, some of them play here, some of them play here. Both of these moves exist. This 2-space extension, this small nice move on the 4th line, right? You want to go a little higher, but there's actually, so we'll see in the next video, there are actually complications here. Black can attack actually immediately, and white will be in a very defensive position. So actually those you'll definitely see if you play online, but these are not the optimal moves, and we'll explain why in the next video. So this is a little more advanced. If you're a beginner, Q player, even dumb player, please just play this 1-space extension. Very solid. It has the fewest vulnerabilities in this situation. And of course, if you ask AI may or may not suggest playing here, especially when the board is empty like this. Number 5 and 7 already has a very solid position, right? It's not really afraid of a pincer, because you can always jump out. It's not going to be surrounded and killed that easily. It's a very solid position. So that is why if you ask AI will say, play an approach, or maybe even start working on pressing whites down, right? Just making white even lower on the 3rd line here, and kind of trying to exploit white's weaknesses in this shape. But as a beginner, again, beginner Q players, you don't have to worry about it too much, right? Just grab the corner, make sure you're alive. That's a good way to go. But again, if you're black in this situation, as a beginner or Q player, you should at least learn this move. It's a very solid move. This 3-space extension on the left side, on the 4th line. This is another thing to note these days, because in the past we say 3rd line, 4th line doesn't make a huge difference. Again, for amateur players, maybe it doesn't, but it's good to know why the 4th line is preferred over the 3rd line. Back then, we didn't have a preference when we teach beginners and amateur players. Now we have a clear preference, and that is the 4th line, because, again, playing on top is really important. Playing toward the center is more important. So if you play here, then the most annoying thing white can do is this approach, right, against the 4th line here. And black can totally ignore this. Black can play elsewhere and safely ignore this, because, first of all, white is not going to cut black off. There's just no viable sequence for white to cut number 9 off from 5 and 7, right? And of course, if you look at amateur games, a lot of amateurs will want to invade the territory on the left side by playing number 12 and number 14, which are terrible moves, as I explain quite often in my game review videos, because you're exchanging stones on the third line for your opponent's stones on the fourth line, and staying on top when the board is empty like this is always going to be good for the side that is on top. Right, so the territory, very, very small, but the potential toward the center, that is much more important and much more valuable. So black is not afraid of any of these invasions if you play in number 9. And you occupy a higher position, right? That's more important. If you play here, then there are all kinds of moves, right? As we know, like shoulder hit, these are very popular pre-AI, right? These moves can be really annoying. Again, what do these exchanges do? It doesn't do a whole lot, but it is an exchange between the stone on the fourth line and the stone on the third line. And the rule of thumb is, again, the stone on the fourth line benefits from such exchanges. And in the age of AI, we also have this, right? This attachment from above, right? This could be pretty annoying, right? And it just keeps black down, right? Really keeps black down. Or something like this, it's just very easy for white to press black down in this situation if you play at number 9. And again, the right move is never to invade, right? Again, if you invade this way, then you're exchanging your stones on the third and second lines to stones on top, right? This is never going to be great for white. Last but not least, you might know that this move also kind of exists, right? The idea is for white to invade the left side, the territory here. If you play something like this or this, then white can come out. And number 12, this is pretty nicely connected, more or less. Right, this is the idea. But again, it's a terrible move on the second line, especially when the board is empty. Black can mostly just ignore this move, I think, because as long as you play on the fourth line, as long as you're on top, you're not worried about whatever white does here on the second or third lines, right? So that is why playing on the fourth line is a very nice move, because you don't really have to worry about guarding the territory. Again, counterintuitive, but as I mentioned this before, I believe, in the kick Joseki here, right? The whole point of this extension is not necessarily, right, to guard the territory, because you can't. Your opponent can still invade, but you're always happy to trade this territory on the side for greater potential on the fourth line and toward the center, right? So that's the idea. But of course, if in the end you do get the side territory, that's also sizable. That's also, of course, very good. But you don't have to have it. It's just one way to build a base in the opening. Right? So that's the level of understanding that you should have. And once you have that understanding, you, as white in this situation, will not be invading the side. Right? Because we see this type of invasion all over the place, all the time in beginner play. And Q players too, even single-digit Q players would make this mistake. And that's just stems from this lack of understanding of what the fourth line extension is about. It's not about the side territory, it is about staying on the fourth line and playing toward the center. Anyway, the main takeaway from this video is just these 6 moves on the upper left. Relatively straightforward. And hopefully I've explained the meaning of every single move. In the next video, we'll look at some of the complications, some of the variations from this very simple Joseki. And that's for a more advanced topic. If you're a beginner, you can skip that safely and come back to it later when your level improves. But this video, this very simple sequence is definitely something to remember and something to understand, especially why each move is played. As always, if you have any questions, please leave it in the comment section below, and I'm always happy to hear from you, and I'm always happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you for watching.